My name is Samantha Carter. And I was 27 years old when a single Valentine's Day destroyed a decade of trust. Looking back now, I keep wondering whether the warning signs had always been there. Maybe they were. Maybe love had made me generous with excuses. Maybe I saw every crack forming and simply kept calling it stress. Ambition. Pressure. Growth. Anything but the truth. The story did not begin with betrayal. It began in a high school parking lot. My prom date had canceled less than an hour before the dance. No long explanation. No apology with weight behind it. Just a short message that landed on my phone while I stood beside my father's restored Mustang, in a dress I suddenly felt foolish wearing. I remember staring at the screen, blinking hard, pretending I was not about to cry. That was when I saw Ryan Mitchell. He stood near the entrance in a dark suit, hands buried in his pockets, looking like someone had abandoned him too. His ride had bailed. His friends had gone inside without him. He looked embarrassed, angry, and alone. Normally, I would have walked past. Instead, I asked, "Do you need a ride?" He looked up, surprised. Then he smiled. That one question changed the next 10 years of my life. We went inside together like it was the most natural thing in the world. We laughed at the terrible decorations, mocked the overcooked chicken, danced badly, and ended the night at a diner with fries, milkshakes, and a group of half-awake classmates who had no idea they were watching the beginning of something permanent. By graduation, Ryan and I were inseparable. College tested us. I went to State University. Ryan went to Tech. 3 hours separated us. But somehow, we made the distance feel smaller. We survived on late-night calls, video games, weekend drives, cheap coffee, and stubborn loyalty. Ryan was never flashy back then. That was one of the reasons I loved him. He did not care about expensive watches, or luxury hotels, or pretending to be important in rooms full of strangers. He loved motorcycle rides, old diners, messy garages, bad movies, and staying up too late talking about impossible dreams. So did I. After college, I rejected a safe corporate job and started a consulting company with my best friend, Ethan Brooks. Ethan was brilliant, patient, and steady in a way I desperately needed. He had been my closest friend since freshman year of college. The kind of person who could look at a broken spreadsheet, a broken engine, or a broken heart and calmly say, "Okay, let's figure it out." Everyone thought we were insane for launching a company from my garage. Ryan did not. When Ethan and I worked until 3 in the morning chasing clients who barely paid us, Ryan showed up with pizza. When a contract fell through, he reminded me why I had started. When I cried over payroll, he sat beside me on the garage floor and said, "You're building something real, Sam. Real things take time." For years, Ryan felt like home. The company grew slowly, then suddenly, it didn't. 1 client became 3, 3 became 10. We hired employees. We rented office space. We stopped pretending the business was a risky dream and started admitting it was becoming a future. For the first time, my life felt stable. That was when Vanessa Parker entered it. She was Ethan's fiancée. Beautiful, polished, and terrifyingly charismatic. Vanessa had the kind of confidence that made people listen before they realized she had not actually said anything kind. She spoke in polished sentences about branding, influence, status, perception, and power. At first, I thought she was simply intense. Ethan loved her. And because I loved Ethan like family, I tried to love her too. Ryan laughed about her at first. Then, he started listening. Then, he started changing. It happened so gradually that I almost missed it. He stopped wearing the old hoodies I loved, started buying designer shirts, started checking his reflection in dark windows, started talking about networking events like they were spiritual awakenings. Then came the criticism. Our motorcycle rides were childish. Our game nights were a waste of time. My garage projects were embarrassing. One Saturday afternoon, Ryan stood in the doorway of my garage while I rebuilt part of an engine. His arms crossed like he was watching a stranger. "You know," he said, "successful people don't spend their weekends covered in grease." I laughed, because I thought he was joking. He wasn't. That should have scared me. Instead, I wiped my hands on a rag and told myself he was stressed. Months passed. Ryan and Vanessa became close, in a way I could not name without sounding jealous. They went to networking mixers together, charity events, business panels, private dinners Ethan could not attend because of work. But Ryan somehow could. Every time I asked for one quiet night, Ryan had another excuse, another opportunity, another room full of people who mattered. One evening, I sat across from him in our apartment while the television glowed silently behind us. "I miss us," I said. Ryan did not look up from his phone. "What does that mean?" "It means I miss being with you without feeling like I'm interrupting your life." He sighed. "Samantha. Not this again." The way he said my name made me feel small. I swallowed. "When was the last time we spent a night together without your phone? You're making this into something it isn't." "No," I said quietly. "I'm asking why everything changed." Finally, he looked at me, and for one awful second, I did not recognize him. Maybe because I finally realized I want more. The room went still. "More than what?" He gestured around our apartment. "This. The same routines. The same small life. The same people doing the same things." My throat tightened. Small life. That was what he called the life we had built together. The life he once loved. I wanted to argue. I wanted to remind him of the prom night, the road trips, the garage floors, the promises whispered during years when neither of us had anything but each other. But the man in front of me looked already halfway gone, so I stayed quiet. Valentine's Day arrived 2 weeks later. Vanessa insisted on hosting a lavish dinner party at her and Ethan's house. Ethan sounded uneasy when he mentioned it, but Vanessa had already planned everything. Formal invitations, assigned seating, catered food, champagne, candles, photographers. The kind of night designed less for intimacy and more for display. Ryan was excited, more excited than I had seen him in months. He spent nearly 4 hours getting ready. He changed outfits twice, checked his hair again and again, took photos, posted stories, asked me if his watch looked expensive enough. I stood in the doorway, watching him. A cold feeling gathering beneath my ribs. "Who are you trying to impress?" I asked lightly. He smiled at his reflection. "Everyone." But when we arrived at the party and stepped into the warm golden light of Vanessa's perfect house, Ryan's eyes did not search for everyone. They found one woman, and from that moment on, I might as well have disappeared. The moment we entered Vanessa's house, Ryan practically abandoned me. It happened so quickly, I almost questioned whether it had happened at all. 1 second, he was beside me. The next, he was halfway across the room, and his attention was fixed on another woman. Her name was Olivia Reed. She was one of Vanessa's friends from a series of networking events. Neither Ethan nor I cared enough to attend. Tall, elegant, confident. The kind of woman Vanessa constantly surrounded herself with. Women who looked like they belonged on magazine covers. Women who treated life like an endless competition. Ryan seemed fascinated by her. Everywhere I looked throughout the evening, he somehow found a reason to be near her. If Olivia moved to the bar, Ryan followed. If Olivia joined a conversation, Ryan appeared moments later. If Olivia laughed, Ryan somehow became the funniest man in the room. At first I told myself I was imagining it. Then Ethan quietly walked over and stood beside me. His expression looked troubled. "Sam." I looked at him. "You seeing this too?" His jaw tightened. That answer told me everything. Because Ethan never involved himself in relationship drama. If he was noticing something, it wasn't in my head. Across the room, Vanessa watched Ryan and Olivia with strange satisfaction. Not concern, not surprise. Satisfaction. Like she was watching an experiment unfold exactly as planned. The sight sent a chill through me. I couldn't explain why, But something felt wrong. Deeply wrong. The dinner began shortly afterward. Vanessa had arranged formal place cards, elegant decorations, perfect lighting. Everything looked carefully designed. Too carefully designed. When everyone sat down, I immediately noticed something strange. Ryan wasn't beside me. Instead, he somehow ended up beside Olivia. My place sat across the table. Separated. Distant. I looked toward Ethan. He frowned at the seating arrangement. Apparently, he hadn't approved it either. Throughout dinner, Ryan focused almost entirely on Olivia. Every joke, every story, every comment, his attention belonged to her. Meanwhile, I sat silently across the table, feeling like a guest at my own relationship's funeral. At one point, Olivia touched Ryan's arm while laughing. A small gesture. An innocent gesture. But Ryan smiled in a way I hadn't seen him smile at me in months. That hurt more than I expected. Because it wasn't attraction that broke my heart. It was recognition. I knew that smile. I used to be the reason for it. As the evening continued, Ethan seemed increasingly uncomfortable. Several times I caught him watching Vanessa. Several times I caught Vanessa watching Ryan. Neither looked happy. The tension felt invisible to everyone, except the four of us. Then came the moment that changed everything. Olivia accidentally spilled red wine across the front of her dress. At least that's what everyone believed. The glass tipped. The wine splashed. People gasped. Olivia jumped to her feet. Oh no. Then she looked directly at Ryan. Could you help me? Not Vanessa. Not me. Not any of the women nearby. Ryan, without hesitation. He stood. The two disappeared toward the kitchen. The room fell strangely quiet. Nobody said anything, but everyone noticed. I sat frozen. My heartbeat pounding. Part of me wanted to trust Ryan. Part of me wanted to believe there was some innocent explanation. But another part of me remembered every warning sign from the previous year. The distance. The criticism, the coldness, the obsession with status, the endless time spent with Vanessa, the way he'd looked at Olivia all evening. Finally, I stood and followed them. The kitchen door remained slightly open. Voices drifted through the gap, soft, intimate. My stomach twisted. I pushed the door wider, and everything inside me stopped. Olivia stood close enough to touch him. One hand rested against Ryan's chest. Ryan wasn't moving away, wasn't stopping her. Wasn't creating distance. He was smiling. Actually, smiling. The paper towels meant to clean the wine sat untouched on the counter. The spilled dress clearly wasn't their priority anymore. For a moment I simply stared. Not angry. Not crying. Just numb. Then Ryan looked up. The color drained from his face. Samantha. Olivia turned. Shock flashed across her expression. Then, strangely, annoyance replaced it. Seriously. I blinked. What? You followed us. I stared at her. For several seconds I honestly couldn't process what she'd said. Then I almost laughed. Because the accusation was absurd. Ryan finally spoke. Olivia. But he never finished. The dining room had gone silent. People were watching, listening, waiting. Vanessa appeared in the doorway. That same strange smile remained on her face. And suddenly, something clicked. Not the entire truth. Not yet. But enough. This wasn't random. It wasn't natural. Something had been arranged. Something had been engineered. I looked at Ryan, waiting for him to explain, waiting for him to defend me, waiting for him to choose us. Instead, he looked at the floor. Silent, ashamed, guilty. That silence hurt more than anything else, because in that moment, he made a choice, and it wasn't me. Without another word, I turned and walked away. Past the dining room, past the guests, past 10 years of memories. I heard Ryan calling my name. I heard footsteps. I heard Ethan shouting something behind me. I kept walking. The cold February air hit my face. Still, I didn't stop. Ryan caught up to me in the driveway. Samantha. Wait. I pulled my arm free. Don't. His face looked desperate. For a second I saw the boy from prom, the man I used to love. Then I remembered what I'd just witnessed. And the image vanished. I got into my car, started the engine, and drove away. In my rearview mirror, Ryan stood beneath the driveway lights, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. But I didn't feel sorry for him. Not anymore. I spent the next 2 weeks at my sister's house. The days blurred together. Work. Sleep. Silence. Ryan called constantly. Voicemails. Texts. Emails. At first he sounded defensive. Then apologetic. Then angry. Then emotional. The messages became longer every day. I ignored all of them, because explanations didn't change what I'd seen. Or so I believed. Eventually, I decided to return home. Not because I forgave him. Because I wanted the truth. The entire truth. I didn't tell anyone I was coming. I wanted honesty before anyone could prepare a story. The moment I entered my apartment complex, something felt wrong. A familiar car sat in my assigned parking space. Olivia's. My pulse quickened. Maybe she was helping Ryan. Maybe she was discussing something important. Maybe. I stopped myself. No more excuses. No more pretending. I unlocked the apartment, stepped inside, and immediately heard music. Our playlist. Songs from road trips. Songs from anniversaries. Songs that belonged to us. The sound felt like a knife twisting inside my chest. I followed it into the living room, and found them. Ryan and Olivia sat together on our couch. A candle burned on the coffee table. Wine glasses rested nearby. A carefully prepared charcuterie board sat between them. Neither noticed me immediately. They were laughing. Comfortable. Relaxed. Intimate. Like they belonged there. Like I didn't. Then Ryan looked up. The color disappeared from his face. Samantha. Olivia stood so quickly, her wine glass nearly tipped over. For several seconds, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The truth filled the room. Heavy. Impossible to ignore. Ryan finally stepped forward. This isn't what it looks like. I almost laughed, because somehow, it looked exactly like what it was. 10 years. 10 years together. And this was how it ended. Not with honesty. Not with courage. Not with respect. With lies. With cowardice. With another woman, sitting in my place. I turned around, walked toward the door. Behind me, Ryan called my name, repeatedly. Olivia started crying. Neither sound mattered. For the first time since I was 17 years old, I chose myself. What I didn't know then was that losing Ryan would be the easy part. The real nightmare was about to begin. Walking away should have been the hardest part. It wasn't. The hardest part came afterward. Because Ryan didn't simply betray me, he helped destroy my reputation. At first the changes were subtle. A strange message here. An awkward conversation there. People who had known me for years suddenly seemed distant. Cold. Uncomfortable. I couldn't understand why. Then my cousin Lauren called. The moment I answered, she started yelling, "Samantha, what is wrong with you?" I froze. "What are you talking about? Stop pretending you don't know." Her voice shook with disappointment. "I never thought you'd be this controlling." My stomach dropped. What? The silence that followed felt surreal. Then Lauren started repeating things she'd heard. According to the rumors, I was manipulative, obsessive, emotionally abusive, controlling. Apparently I monitored Ryan's friendships, controlled who he spoke to, created drama whenever another woman entered a room, threatened people, tracked his phone, destroyed his confidence. The accusations were so ridiculous I almost laughed. Then I realized people actually believed them. That was when panic set in. Within days the rumors spread everywhere. Former classmates, mutual friends, family members, business contacts, people I'd known for years suddenly looked at me differently. And somehow, I had become the villain. Then the fake screenshots appeared. That was when everything exploded. Edited text conversations began circulating online. Messages supposedly written by me, threats, insults, manipulation, control. The screenshots looked convincing. Whoever created them knew exactly what they were doing. People rarely question evidence that confirms what they already want to believe. Overnight, I became someone I didn't recognize. The damage quickly spread into my business. Clients started asking questions. Contracts disappeared. Potential deals stalled. One longtime customer suddenly postponed negotiations. Another requested a meeting to discuss concerns regarding professionalism. Professionalism. The word nearly made me laugh. For years, I had built a reputation based on honesty. Now, strangers were judging me based on lies. The stress became unbearable. I barely slept. Food lost its taste. Every morning felt like waking up inside another crisis. The only place I found peace was my garage. Late at night, I would sit among unfinished motorcycle projects and scattered tools. Metal made sense. Machines made sense. When a machine failed, there was a reason. A damaged part. A broken connection. A worn-out system. People were harder. People hid their failures. People lied about their reasons. People convinced themselves they were innocent while destroying someone else's life. Meanwhile, Ryan continued trying to contact me. Voicemails. Emails. Messages through mutual friends. He insisted he wanted to explain. Wanted to fix things. Wanted me to hear his side. I ignored all of it. Because explanations didn't erase choices. At least, that was what I believed. Then, everything changed. It happened on a rainy Thursday evening. The office was nearly empty. Most employees had already gone home. I sat alone reviewing financial reports, while rain tapped softly against the windows. My laptop suddenly exploded with notifications. Message. Emails. Group chat. Private texts. Dozens. Then, hundreds. My phone began vibrating nonstop. At first, I thought something had happened to the company. Then I noticed the subject line, appearing over and over again. Read this now. My stomach tightened. The sender was Vanessa Parker. I opened the email and began reading. The first paragraph made my heart stop. The second made me physically sick. By the third, my hands were shaking. Because the entire nightmare had been engineered. Every argument. Every coincidence. Every carefully arranged moment. Everything. Vanessa confessed to all of it. The email stretched for dozens of pages. Screenshots. Conversation. Voice recordings. Message. Dates. Evidence. Enough evidence to destroy every lie that had been told about me. According to Vanessa, what began as insecurity eventually became obsession. She had developed a bizarre need to prove whether people were truly loyal, especially the people closest to her. Most importantly, Ethan. Vanessa became convinced that everyone would eventually betray someone if given the right opportunity. Instead of trusting people, she decided to test them. The test started small. Tiny manipulations. Small situations. Harmless experiments. Then they escalated. Eventually, Ryan became her biggest project. Vanessa spent months influencing him. Months convincing him that he deserved more. More money. More status. More influence. More excitement. More attention. More than Samantha. She carefully attacked every part of our relationship. Not directly. Subtly. She praised wealthy lifestyles. Mocked simplicity. Elevated social status. Encouraged comparison. Created dissatisfaction. Over and over again. Until Ryan began questioning things he had once loved. The most painful part came next. The screenshots showed Ryan resisting at first. Defending me. Protecting me. Arguing with Vanessa. Insisting he loved me. I stared at those messages for a long time. Because they reminded me that the man I loved had existed once. But eventually something changed. His resistance weakened. The messages became different. The complaints increased. The comparisons increased. The emotional distance increased. Then Olivia entered the conversations. Vanessa began encouraging Ryan to spend time around her, complimenting Olivia, comparing her to me, highlighting differences, creating temptation. Month after month, the manipulation intensified, until eventually, Ryan stopped resisting and started participating. That realization hurt more than anything, because it destroyed the final excuse I had been secretly holding on to. Ryan wasn't innocent. Ryan wasn't simply manipulated. Ryan made choices. Repeatedly. Knowingly. Willingly. Then came the Valentine's Day revelation. The seating arrangement had been planned. The atmosphere had been planned. The opportunities had been planned. Even the wine spill had been planned. Vanessa orchestrated every detail. She wanted to create temptation. She wanted to observe Ryan's reaction. She wanted proof. The entire evening had been designed as a loyalty test, but Vanessa lost control of her own experiment because Ryan failed completely. Instead of pulling away from Olivia, he became more attached. Instead of protecting our relationship, he pursued another woman. Instead of recognizing manipulation, he embraced it. The email grew darker. After Valentine's Day, Vanessa repeatedly attempted to stop the situation. At least according to her confession, She claimed she told Ryan to repair his relationship, told him to distance himself from Olivia, told him the test was over. But by then, Ryan had developed real feelings. The damage was already done. Then came the final bombshell. The smear campaign. The fake screenshots. The lies. The character assassination. Vanessa confessed to helping create all of it. Every edited conversation, every manipulated image, every false accusation. She helped build the narrative that nearly destroyed my life. Apparently she justified it by convincing herself she was protecting everyone involved. Protecting Ryan. Protecting Olivia. Protecting her own reputation. Protecting the truth she didn't want exposed. The irony was almost unbearable. She had created the disaster she claimed she was trying to control. The email ended with a public apology. Not just to me, to Ethan, to our employees, to our clients, to every person she had deceived. Then came one final sentence. A sentence that stayed with me, long after I finished reading. I wanted proof that people could not be trusted. In the process, I became the least trustworthy person in the room. Silence filled my office. I stared at the screen for a very long time. My phone continued vibrating. Apologies flooded in. People who had abandoned me wanted forgiveness. People who had judged me wanted understanding. People who believed lies suddenly wanted to explain themselves, but I barely noticed. Because while everyone else was finally discovering the truth, I was realizing something worse. Vanessa may have manipulated Ryan. Vanessa may have arranged opportunities. Vanessa may have poisoned the environment around us. But she never forced Ryan to betray me. That choice belonged to him. And that truth hurt more than every lie combined. Then my office door opened. I looked up. Ethan stood there. His face was pale. His eyes looked exhausted. Like someone who had just watched his entire future collapse. For several seconds neither of us spoke. Finally, he sat down across from me. And quietly said the words I never expected to hear. Samantha. I think Vanessa destroyed all of us. Ethan looked like a man attending the funeral of a future he had spent years building. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Rain continued tapping softly against the office windows. The silence felt heavy, exhausted, permanent. Finally, Ethan rubbed a hand across his face. I didn't know how bad it was. I believed him. That was the difficult part. After everything that had happened, I still believed him. Because unlike Ryan, Ethan wasn't good at pretending. When he was angry, everyone knew. When he was happy, everyone knew. And when he was devastated, it showed. His eyes looked hollow. His shoulders sagged. His voice carried the weight of a man who had just discovered the woman he planned to marry had been living a lie. I should have seen it sooner. He said quietly, You trusted her. That doesn't excuse it. No. I looked down at Vanessa's confession email, but it explains it. Ethan stared out the window. I kept telling myself she was ambitious. His laugh sounded bitter. Turns out she was manipulating everyone around her. Neither of us said anything for several seconds. There wasn't much left to say. Some damage couldn't be explained away. Some damage simply existed. Eventually, Ethan stood. I ended it. I looked up. His expression didn't change. The engagement. The words weren't surprising. Still, hearing them felt strange. Years of planning. Years of commitment. Gone? Just like that. I moved out this morning. I nodded. For a moment, we simply sat there surrounded by the ruins Vanessa had left behind. Then Ethan said something unexpected. I'm sorry. I frowned. For what? For not protecting you. The apology hit harder than I expected. Because Ethan had always been the protector in our friendship. The steady one. The reliable one. The person who fixed problems. And now he blamed himself for something none of us had fully understood until it was too late. You didn't betray me. Ethan. No. His voice lowered, but I ignored things I shouldn't have ignored. Maybe he had. Maybe all of us had. The warning signs were there. We just hadn't wanted to see them. The following months became a blur of lawyers. Meetings? Negotiations? And damage control. The company had survived the scandal. But survival didn't mean everything was normal. Trust had been shaken. Employees felt divided. Clients felt nervous. Investors wanted reassurance. Ethan and I spent countless hours discussing the future. One evening, after another 12-hour meeting, We finally reached a decision. We would separate our professional interests. Not because we hated each other, not because we couldn't work together, because we needed a clean reset, a chance to move forward without constantly reliving what had happened. The process took months. Contracts had to be rewritten. Accounts had to be divided. Clients had to choose which direction they wanted to follow. In the end, the split remained professional, respectful, fair. Ethan launched a separate consulting firm. I retained the original company, the name, most of the staff, most of the long-term clients. When the paperwork was finally complete, I felt something I hadn't felt in a very long time. Relief. Not happiness. Not yet. But relief. The bleeding had finally stopped. Meanwhile, Ryan kept trying to return. At first he sent emails, then handwritten letters, then messages through mutual friends. The pattern never changed. Apologies. Regret. Excuses. Promises. One letter arrived nearly a year after Valentine's Day. I almost threw it away unopened. Instead, I read it. Ryan admitted everything. His arrogance, his selfishness, his obsession with status, his attraction to Olivia, his willingness to believe Vanessa, his failure to defend me. For once, there were no excuses, no blame, no manipulation, just honesty. Ironically, it was the honesty I had wanted from him all along. Too late. I folded the letter, placed it back inside the envelope, and never responded, because forgiveness and reconciliation are not the same thing. I eventually forgave Ryan. Not for him, for myself. Carrying anger forever is exhausting. But forgiveness didn't mean access. It didn't mean a second chance. It didn't mean reopening a door that needed to stay closed. Some relationships end because they should. As for Vanessa, her life unraveled quickly. The confession email spread far beyond our social circle. Professional opportunities disappeared. Friendships evaporated. Her engagement ended. The carefully crafted image she valued so much collapsed almost overnight. The cruel irony wasn't lost on anyone. Vanessa spent months trying to prove people were untrustworthy. In the end, she became the person nobody trusted. Nearly a year after everything happened, my brother convinced me to join a local motorcycle charity event. At first, I refused. Then, he refused to accept my refusal. So I went. That decision changed my life. His name was Daniel Walker. He was helping organize the event. Tall, easygoing, confident, without being arrogant. The kind of man who listened more than he talked. We met while arguing over the proper way to rebuild an old motorcycle engine. The conversation lasted 40 minutes. The second conversation lasted nearly 2 hours. The third conversation ended with coffee, then dinner, then a weekend ride through the mountains. Everything felt different with Daniel. There were no games, no performances, no competitions, no hidden agendas. If he was happy, he said so. If he was frustrated, he said so. If he cared, he showed it. The simplicity felt almost unfamiliar. One Saturday afternoon, we spent hours rebuilding an old motorcycle in my garage. Grease covered our hands. Tools lay scattered across the floor. Sunlight streamed through the open garage door. At one point, Daniel looked over and smiled. "You know something." "What?" "You always look happiest when you're building." I paused, because Ethan had once said something similar, and both of them were right. For too long, I had focused on what I lost. Ryan. The relationship. The future I imagined. The version of my life that never happened. But healing wasn't about recovering what was gone. Healing was about creating something new. Something stronger. Something honest. Years later, I occasionally heard updates through mutual friends. Ryan eventually moved across the country. Olivia disappeared from our social circle. Ethan's company became successful. We remained friends. Not partners, but friends. Real friends. The kind that survived disasters. As for me, one evening I stood in my garage, watching the sunset spill across the concrete floor. Daniel sat nearby working on an engine. Music played softly from an old speaker. The air smelled like oil and summer rain. Peace. Real peace. For the first time in years, I understood something important. The people who betrayed me spent so much time chasing a better life that they never appreciated the one they already had. Ryan wanted status. Vanessa wanted control. Olivia wanted attention. And in chasing those things, they destroyed everything meaningful. Me. I lost a boyfriend. I lost trust. I lost a future I thought I wanted, but I found something far more valuable, myself. And once you find your self-respect, everything changes. You stop begging for loyalty. You stop negotiating your worth. You stop accepting less than you deserve. The betrayal that nearly destroyed me ended up teaching me the most important lesson of my life. The right people never need to be convinced to value you, and the wrong people eventually reveal themselves. All you have to do is believe them when they do.